In this video, you'll see how to solve one-step equations by addition and subtraction. Let's look at some general guidelines that we would use for solving just about any equation. First, remember the goal of solving an equation is to find the value of the variable by getting it alone on one side of the equation. Try to get the variable alone, we call that isolating the variable. So, some steps to solving equations. You want to simplify each side of the equation. So if possible to simplify, you might use the distributive property, or maybe you'll combine like terms or a combination of the both. Step 2, you're going to get the variable terms alone on one side of the equation by zeroing out the constant on the variable side. So we'll see that in a second, how we're going to zero out the constant. That's going to be the step that we focus on today. And step 3, which won't be in this video, but you'll need to know for later, isolate the variable. You want to make the coefficient 1 by multiplying or dividing by that coefficient. And finally, we're going to check our work by substituting our answer back into the original equation. So one thing to know for solving equations is the additive inverse property. And what this tells us is the sum of any number and its inverse, or opposite, is 0. So 8 plus negative 8 is 0, and x plus negative x is 0. You could say something like 3y plus negative 3y. That would be 0. So let's see how we will solve equations. Well, I've got first here, m minus 9 equals negative 14. There's nothing to simplify here on the left side of the equal sign. So now I'm going to work on zeroing out my constant that is on the same side as my variable. So negative 9 is my constant, and I recall the additive inverse property. If I want to zero this out, I would just add 9 to negative 9, and I would get 0. This is an equation, so in order to keep things balanced, if I add 9 to the left side of this equal sign, then I also have to add 9 to the right side. So m minus 9 plus 9, these two zero out, I'm left with m. And negative 14 plus 9 is a negative 5. To see if I'm correct, I just want to substitute this negative 5 for m in my original equation. So negative 5 minus 9, that's negative 14. So my equation checks out. So m is equal to negative 5. In this next example, 42 equals 12 plus w. Well, here I'm going to start working on the right side of the equal sign because that's where my variable is. And the constant that's with this variable is a positive 12. So to zero out a positive 12, I'm going to subtract 12. But what I do to one side of the equal sign, I have to also do to the other. So we can see here 12 minus 12, this is 0. So on the right side of the equal sign, I have w. Bring down my equal sign, 42 minus 12 is 30. So now I just want to check my work here. So w is equal to 30. I'm going to replace this w with 30. 12 plus 30 is equal to 42, and this checks out. Here are a couple problems for you to practice on your own. Alright, number 1, negative 33 equals k minus 14. I'm going to look at the right side of the equal sign. And k minus 14, how do I zero out this constant negative 14? I would add 14. But what I do to one side of the equal sign, I must do to the other. So k minus 14 plus 14, these zero out. That leaves me with k. And negative 33 plus 14, that's going to leave me with a 19, a negative 19. So I can check my work. I've got negative 19 as my answer, and I think that's what k is equal to, so to check, I'll substitute negative 19 for k. And since my original equation had k minus 14, I'm going to simplify negative 19 minus 14. And when I subtract these two numbers, I get negative 33. So it checks out. If I have decimals, I would do the same thing though, right? Even though there are decimals here, this 5.2 that's on the same side of the equal sign as n, that's still a constant there. It's just a decimal. So to zero it out, I would subtract 5.2. But what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So 3.8 will also be subtracted by 5.2. So n plus 5.2 minus 5.2, these cancel out, leaving me with n. And 3.8 minus 5.2, that's going to give me a negative 1.4. To check my work, I'm going to substitute my answer that I got for n, negative 1.4, for n up in the original equation. So negative 1.4 plus 5.2. When I add those two together, I get a positive 3.8. So this one checks out.